Let's transition and let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals as the Cleveland Browns. They beat the Cincinnati Bengals 41-16. It was the second straight loss for the Cincinnati Bengals. For the Browns, Baker Mayfield, he went 14 of 21, threw for 218 yards, 2 touchdowns. For the Bengals, Joe Burrow, he went 28 of 40, threw for 282 yards, 2 interceptions. So, my biggest takeaway in this game is, first and foremost, Joe Burrow has to protect the football better. Joe Burrow on the season, he has 11 interceptions. That's the same amount of interceptions as Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold, he's been awful so far through the first 9 games with the Carolina Panthers. Joe Burrow, you have to protect the football better. Like, that's been my biggest issue so far with Joe Burrow. And even Bengal fans have an issue with Joe Burrow. This is Mo Egger. He's a radio personality here in Cincinnati. This is a tweet that he put out Sunday. I'm thrilled that Joe Burrow is the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe he's going to win a lot of games as the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm also mystified at the interceptions he throws as the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. And so you saw on the Bengals opening drive, Joe Burrow throws a pick 6 to Denzel Ward, and that set the tone for the Cleveland Browns in this game. Joe Burrow must protect the football better. And if the Bengals want to be true contenders in the AFC and contend for AFC North supremacy, they need their quarterback to protect the football better. You got to protect the football better. Like, the Bengals were on their way to scoring and going up 7-0 in the divisional game against the Cleveland Browns, a team who desperately needs a win. Can you imagine if the Bengals would have went up 7-0 over the Browns? How much pressure would have been on Baker Mayfield and the Browns offense to score on the next possession? They would have had a bunch of pressure on them on the next possession. So Joe Burrow throwing a pick 6 in that moment on the Bengals' first possession killed any momentum that the Bengals had built up. He killed the momentum in that situation. 99-yard touchdown by Denzel Ward can't happen. Cannot happen. So Joe Burrow must protect the football better if the Bengals want to be contenders in the AFC. Also, let's talk about that Bengals defense. The Cincinnati Bengals defense. Through the first 7 weeks of the season, Bengals were 5-2 on the season. They gave up 18 points per game, 245 passing yards per game allowed, 94 rushing yards per game allowed. The last 2 weeks, Bengals are 0-2. They've given up 37.5 points per game. They've given up 311 passing yards per game, and they've given up 125 rushing yards per game. So defensively right now, the Bengals, they aren't playing very well. And I told y'all last week, they made Mike White look like the second coming of Joe Namath. Now, I know Joe Namath finished his career with more interceptions than touchdowns, but Joe Namath is an all-time great at the quarterback position for the New York Jets. But the Bengals allowed Mike White to score 34 on them in week 8. And then they followed that up in a game against the Cleveland Browns, an AFC North opponent, and they allowed the Cleveland Browns to have 361 total yards of offense, and the Browns were able to have 153 rushing yards on the ground. So the Browns won the game running the football and won the line of scrimmage. So in order for the Bengals to be true contenders in the AFC, defensively, they must improve. Defensive coordinator Lou Amundsen, I don't know how to pronounce his name, so stay with me. But Lou, you got to get these brothers together. They got the bye week in week 10 coming up, so hopefully they'll have an opportunity to relax and look at the film because they've been bad the last few weeks. They got to get better defensively. They got to get better. And, you know, the Bengals, they're going to put up points. Although they lost, they had 348 total yards of offense, 263 yards through the air, and, you know, they only had, 85 rushing yards. But we know they're going to put up points. They can score. They got weapons in Ja'Marr Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, Uzama. And then you got running backs like Joe Mixon and like Perrin. You got weapons offensively. They're going to score points. They have to be able to get stops defensively if they want to win games. Okay, so those are two of my biggest takeaways and why the Bengals lost against the Cleveland Browns. Joe Burrow not protecting the football and the defense not playing good football right now. Now, let's talk about Baker Mayfield in this game. Baker Mayfield in this game, he went for 14 of 21, 218 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, I know everyone's going to say, oh, he only had 14 completions in the game. Listen, out of all the turmoil that was going on in Cleveland the previous week, all of the loud noise, you know, how Baker Mayfield's dad had posted videos on Instagram about how Odell wasn't getting the football, Odell got released. I got to give Baker Mayfield some credit because he played well in a game that the Cleveland Browns desperately needed. I thought he was efficient in this game. I don't think he was great statistically, but I thought he was efficient in this game. And he managed the game very well for the Cleveland Browns. Now, of course, the reason why the Cleveland Browns won the game was because they had Nick Chubb. And Nick Chubb in this game had 14 carries for 137 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. The man averaged close to 10 yards per carry. We know the recipe for the Browns to win games is to run the football with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. This is not going to be a team that's going to have Baker Mayfield drop back to pass 35 or 40 times plus per game. That's not their formula for success. The formula for success is to run the football because they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Run the football with Nick Chubb and have the play action set up for Baker Mayfield to thrive off of. And that's what he did in this game against the Cincinnati Bengals. The touchdown pass that he threw to Donovan Peoples-Jones was impressive. That was off play action. That's how Baker Mayfield is able to be successful. It's not the Browns getting in shootouts and you need Baker Mayfield to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. No. So I thought he did a great job at managing the game for Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns. So I give Baker Mayfield credit from that standpoint. The Bengals, back to them, the last 2 weeks, they've lost to the Jets and the Browns. They got a bye week this week in week 10. And then after the bye, they have to play against the Las Vegas Raiders out there in Vegas. And then after that, in week 12, they home against the Steelers, home against the Chargers, home against the 49ers. 3-game homestand that's going to be crucial for the Bengals' playoff hopes. So let's talk about their next 4 games. Raiders, Steelers, Chargers, Niners. They'll beat the Niners in week 14 because I don't think the Niners are a playoff team. I think the Niners are going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo in the offseason. I don't think he's their quarterback of the future. I think they are rebuilding, and they're trying to figure out if Trey Lance is going to be their future franchise quarterback. So I think the Bengals will beat the Niners in week 14 at Paul Brown. Now, their week 12 game against the Steelers is interesting because Steelers are 5-3 right now. They just beat the Chicago Bears on Monday night, playing some good football. I don't think the Steelers are a playoff team, so I think that's a game the Bengals could win. But it's also a game they could lose. Divisional game is tough. It's a toss-up. It can go either way. Chargers game, I think they'll lose to the Chargers and Justin Herbert. I do. So I think they could easily lose to the Raiders and the Chargers. They got the Raiders in week 11 after the bye, and they got the Chargers in week 13 at Paul Brown, December 5th. They got to go at least 2-2 in these next 4 games. At least 2-2. If they go 1-3, they're not going to be a playoff team. I'm saying it now. If they lose to the Chargers, Steelers, and Raiders, all 3 games they could possibly lose, and they only beat the 49ers in these next 4 games, they're not a playoff team. They're not. Because at that point, they'll be, 5-7 after the next 4 weeks? You're not going to playoffs at 5-7. That's going to be a struggle. That's going to be a struggle. So next 4 weeks, I think the Bengals, if they go 2-2, they'll be okay. 2-2, they'll be okay. I think they can beat the Steelers, and I know they'll beat the 49ers. Chargers and Raiders game is a toss-up, but they got to beat the Steelers. Got to beat the Steelers in week 12. Raiders game is also, like I said, that's a toss-up too, but the way the Raiders are playing right now, I know they did lose to the Giants, but the Raiders are a good football team. They're 5-3. They're a good football team. They're one of my top 5 teams in the AFC. But we'll see what happens with the Bengals moving forward.